Hi, my name's Chad Boda, and I'm a PhD candidate at the Lund University Center for Sustainability Studies here in Lund, Sweden. Today I'll be presenting a paper that I co-authored with a colleague of mine named Vasna Ramasar. The paper is entitled Sustainable Management of Coastal Zones, 6 Cross-Scale and Cross-Level Linkages. Today, 14 of the world's 17 largest megacities, along with countless other small settlements, crowd the world's coastlines. Coastal population densities are some 3 times higher than the rest of the world. And the global population that living in the coastline is expected to swell up to 3 billion by 2025. While there are many ways to view complexity in coastal environments, in this paper we highlight those important dimensions associated with scale, a concept central to the study of ecology and geography. We argue that scale and scalar interactions are a core component of what makes coastal management really complex and really challenging. From this perspective, we want to contribute to the growing awareness that a failure to consider these scalar dynamics in research and in practice will reduce the prospects for sustainable coastal living now and in the future. So, what is scale, and how does it actually contribute to our understanding of complexity? Scale has been defined as the spatial, temporal, quantitative, or analytical dimensions used to measure any phenomenon. For example, we can talk of scales of space, time, jurisdiction, or management. However, scales are not necessarily analytically useful without including the levels of measurement. Level is defined as the units of analysis that are located at different positions on a scale. So, a spatial scale, used to measure, say, ecological areas, might have levels defined from the patch to the landscape, to the region, and finally to the global level. Here are some other examples of potential levels on the temporal, jurisdictional, and management scales. In complex systems like the coastal zone, many interactions can occur within, between, or across scales. Cross-scale interactions are those interactions that occur between actors and processes that are located on different scales. Interactions can also occur between different levels within individual scales. These are what are known as cross-level interactions. The character of these scalar interactions can either persist for long periods of time or change rapidly depending on circumstances. Understanding these dynamics of change is important for designing management strategies capable of dealing with cross-scalar challenges and of promoting sustainability more generally. In our article, we take a historical look at the processes of coastal development in the U.S. state of Florida, using the scalar concept as an analytical lens. By analyzing this history, we hope to show that many of the same scalar interactions that have influenced historical development continue to shape the coastal environment today, in Florida and elsewhere. We also discuss how identifying such scalar interactions helps to better conceptualize complexity, and thus can promote better understanding and decision-making in coastal management research and practice. So now let's take a trip to sunny Florida to give some more specific examples of what exactly cross-scalar interactions are, and how they add to complexity in coastal management. In particular, I want to discuss the changing systems of land control and property rights that have occurred throughout Florida's developmental history. In the article itself, Vasna and I discuss a variety of other aspects of Florida's social and geophysical history. From the beginning of Spanish and later British colonization of the New World, the systems of land control and property rights in places like Florida were strongly linked across levels of the spatial scale and between jurisdictional and institutional scales, specifically regarding the connection between the European mainland and the dispersed settlements in the Florida Peninsula. The Florida colony and the European mainland were also linked across jurisdictional and institutional scales. For example, European-based colonial authority was embedded in local context through the enforcement of organizational structures, rules, and norms in the colony. These rules and structures included, for example, regulations on indigenous claims to territory, the legally practicable religion, or the sanctioned practices of subdivision and bequeathing of property for purposes of inheritance. Throughout the European settlement periods, and continuing under American rule, there have been numerous instances of the rescaling of land management through the creation of new levels within the administrative scale, such as the new state and local governments, and the reorganizing and resizing of spatial extent of governed territory, such as the creation of new counties and water management districts. A good example from the British period is the splitting of La Florida into East and West Florida in 1763. By splitting the Florida territory into new sublevels of East Florida and West Florida, the British colonial administration greatly contributed to the uneven development of the Florida Peninsula. This is because the growth of and investment in the existing population centers and resources, which were largely concentrated along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts, were further encouraged by the East Florida territorial government. This was mainly accomplished through offering large land grants, both to speculative investors and to prospective settlers. More recently, the implementation of a new system under the U.S. statehood created new administrative levels called counties, which were able to create many of their own resource development decisions, leading to uneven development in the peninsula. Today, for example, there are huge differences in population size, demographic makeup, and environmental management strategies of South Florida's Miami-Dade County, which has a population of more than 2.6 million and contains the city of Miami, and its neighbor to the west, Monroe County, which has a population of only 76,000 and is mostly comprised of undeveloped agricultural and conservation areas. As we have seen, adjustments in the jurisdictional scale can have profound effects on other aspects of the spatial, temporal, managerial, and institutional scales implicated in Florida's coastal management. Similar relationships are shared between many other scales involved in managing human use of the environment. The primary challenge remains as to how to effectively harness cross-scale and cross-level interactions in a way that can help produce sustainable outcomes. So, how can we begin to move towards sustainable coastal management? Taking into consideration the complexity of these cross-scalar dynamics, we recognize that there are many challenges to managing coastal environments in a sustainable manner. We thus call for a consideration of scale and cross-scale dynamics as part of a more comprehensive approach affecting coastal management. In particular, we want to suggest that coastal management could benefit from engaging strategically in processes of institutional interplay, co-management, and the use of boundary work as promising means for addressing these cross-scalar challenges. Institutional interplay is the intentional and strategic creation of relationships that can be developed between institutions working on similar issues. These interactions can be horizontal or vertical, meaning they can be between organizations on the same level or between organizations on higher or lower levels. Cultivating relationships and interactions between institutions, which promote enhanced capacity for coordination both horizontally and vertically, can help institutions identify cross-scale and cross-level linkages and use such linkages to enhance sustainable outcomes. With this knowledge, institutions can adjust their principles and practice accordingly to either exploit positive or reduce negative scalar interactions. Co-management involves developing different arrangements of power and responsibility sharing between governments, local communities, and private actors to enhance management outcomes. Though cultivating the relationships needed to effectively co-manage can be extremely challenging, the potential benefits include innovative institutional arrangements and incentive structures more capable of dealing with multiscalar social environmental complexity. Co-management is not necessarily a new idea, but it remains one of the most important approaches for dealing with cross-scalar challenges. Finally, and in relationship to both institutional interplay and co-management, boundary work is an important approach for managing cross-scale and cross-level challenges. Boundary work involves the strategic interplay and engagement between and across boundaries, such as knowledge, cultural norms, and language, which separate different organizations, institutions, individuals, and academic disciplines. Effective boundary work has been shown to promote the co-production of knowledge and understanding between actors and interest groups and helps promote efficient coordination and conflict resolution in a variety of contexts all around the world. So in closing, we want to reiterate that, from our perspective, addressing the cross-scalar challenges highlighted in this article, whether through institutional interplay, co-management, or boundary work, or an innovative combination of these, this should be placed at the core of coastal management research and practice, and the future of sustainability in the coastal zone might depend on it. Thank you for listening.